What's up, everyone? Thank you for tuning into this video. I have bought a new shitbox. It's this 2010 Mazda 3. In this video, we're going to check it out. I'm going to tell you what's wrong with it, tell you my thoughts about it, and tell you the things I've noticed in the month or so that I've owned it. So let's get started. Starting off on the back here, there is evidence that this car was owned by someone of moron descent. The taillights were tinted or painted or something, and the paint's coming off this one here. The badge is missing, which I want to find another one of. The reflectors are blacked out for reasons I don't understand. This badge is blacked out, which I actually don't mind. The third brake light was blacked out because someone's an idiot. More paint on the taillights. The tint on the back windows in rough shape. All the windows are tinted, and they're all in rough shape. Fuel doors blacked out for some reason. The wheels are all in pretty good shape. The tires are good on the back, at least. There's evidence that these wheels were painted black at some point. The car itself is gray. It's not black. It's actually a good color. It does have these roof racks on it, which is potentially exciting because I could mount a bike rack to those. The paint is not super terrible. It could be better. This wheel's in pretty good shape. It needs front tires on the front. They're getting bald on the front. And it's missing some push pins for the fender liner. This fender liner is in place. The fender liner is missing on the driver's side. Moving around to the front. The front end was in better shape than this when I bought it. The hood won't latch properly, and that's my fault. This badge is blacked out and coming apart, which is also my fault. All these cracks in the bumper here, those are all my fault. This fog light has fallen into the bumper, and that was not my fault. It's like that when I bought it. Let's see if I can get it in place. Well, that's better than it was. I believe they do work. I know this one works. The headlights are good. Not clouded. And they project well. The hood is black, which makes me think it might be off of another car. Wheels are in good shape. It's missing the fender liner on this side, and I want to get a new fender liner because I don't like that the fender liner is missing. I don't like all the dirt and water splashing up and coating everything. It's got this rain guard on this window here. All the windows are tinted. The tint is in rough shape. That's the exterior. The exterior is not super terrible. It's definitely shitbox territory, but it could definitely be worse. Moving inside now to the interior. The interior is in pretty good shape. It's definitely better than the exterior. I bought this car from a dealership, so it was detailed before I bought it. And that means it was detailed with the whatever the hell they use to make all the plastics shine and have that luster that leaves them with a layer of grease. So that was annoying. And one thing to show you all before I get started is this is the key. It's the switchblade key, and it's junk. It's all fallen apart and broken. And I was looking up some videos, and apparently this is really common. So I might rebuild the key in the future because this drives me crazy. But getting the key in the ignition, give the steering wheel a good tug. These gauges, I feel like these gauges are a wasted potential. The hoods on them are nice and attractive, but the gauges themselves are... There's a ton of empty space and wasted space. You could do so much more with this space in the middle, which if you had an automatic, that would house the Prindle and warning lights, but here it just houses warning lights. The fuel gauge and the odometer and trip odometer are down there. And then it's just a bevy of warning lights, a speedometer, and a tach. I feel like they could have utilized these spaces on either side of the tach and speedo better. But that's just me. This guy is one of my favorite things in the whole car. For some reason, the novelty of having a clock in the outside temperature that I can see very easily is very entertaining to me. And this right here, I believe is entirely for traction control. Or maybe, I think that's entirely for the passenger airbag light. Then we got your air vents, hazard lights. This head unit is definitely aftermarket. It works, but it's not great. It takes the Bluetooth 10,000 years to connect, but it sounds decent. Simple climate control, doesn't get better than that. One interesting quirk of this climate control is you could get these things with dual climate, and it would show the driver and passenger temperature up in this screen here if you had dual climate. But there's something wrong with the blend doors in mine. So everything to the right of the hazard lights blows colder than the left of the hazard lights, which is really interesting. The dashboard is in good shape. It's decent padded material. You got this aluminum trim-ish here. A tiny glove box. It's very small compared to my previous shitbox. Passenger side door. This car is a 5-speed. And the shifter is pretty good. Not too bad. Even coming from my Honda. Little storage cubby in front of that. Parking brake that doesn't work at all. And then a center console, which is sizable enough to hold my junk. It's a pretty good interior. You've also got this relatively attractive steering wheel, and I don't know if this badge was painted white or it was white from the factory, but it looks good. I like it. Let's take a look at the trunk now. So this design, trunk and fuel door, I wouldn't call that the best design. The Honda style, where you pull up for the trunk and push in for the fuel door, is a better design. There's no way to confuse that. But getting into the trunk, it's got struts that are good. The trunk is definitely smaller than my Accord, but it looks like the opening for the folding rear seats is much bigger. The trunk is pretty good though, and the struts work pretty well. And it closes nice and solid. So let's go ahead and check out the engine now. So I would go in there and pop the hood, but there's no need because it doesn't latch. The engine in this car is a 2-liter 4-cylinder. I believe it's the same 2-liter that was shared with the Ford Focus and various other Ford nonsense. Good motor. Got plenty of coolant in it. Plenty of power steering fluid. And everything's pretty happy under here. It's got really good power. Really not much to say under here. It's all doing really well. There's a lot of space in here. You could get this 2-liter and a 2.5. And there's loads of room back here to do stuff, so it makes sense that they'd be able to cram a 2.5 in here. But as far as the damage, there you can see there's more accident damage right there. And the bumper and everything else was definitely pushed towards the car in the accident. And I think I may have bent the hood latch. And I'm gonna try to get a new hood latch to see if that will allow the hood to close. But you know, the secondary latch keeps it from opening on the highway. And speaking of the highway, let's go see how this thing drives. Alrighty, we're driving my Mazda 3. So a few things to make note of right off the bat is, number one, it does rattle. It doesn't rattle nearly as bad as my previous shitbox did, but it does rattle. It's got, right now it has 217,899 miles on it. I bought it with a 215. You know, it's still a shitbox. It's gonna rattle. The ride is surprisingly stiff. It's pretty bouncy, and it makes me wonder if it has some sort of aftermarket suspension on it, especially in the rear. The front end is perfectly compliant, but the rear end's extremely bouncy. So it either has like some sort of aftermarket suspension on it, or it has like cut springs, or who knows what, but it's pretty bouncy. It does handle good. There's a significantly less body roll than there was in my old car. And you know, the bounciness is not uncontrolled, you know, it's just bouncing. And it's, you know, something that I do notice. The engine, 2-liter 4-cylinder, I believe it makes 148 horsepower and probably a similar torque figure. It feels shockingly peppy. Like, and you know, this is probably me being jaded towards super slow stuff, but this thing feels downright quick to me. It's got a lot of power. Like, it's got plenty of power to merge, plenty of power to accelerate away from lights, up hills, to not piss people off behind you. And maybe my standards are just really freaking low, but it feels like it's got a ton of power. And I haven't had a single problem with it. When I first got it, I thought it might have been burning oil, but no, it's not. It's not doing that. It's not using any fluids whatsoever. It's getting about 32 miles per gallon pretty consistently. Very happy with it. I mentioned that you could get a 2.5 in this generation of the car as well. And if you got the 2.5, you could get a 6-speed manual instead of the 5-speed manual. And that's an appealing prospect. Because I think the 2.5 makes like 30 more horsepower and 40 foot-pounds more torque. And that power with another gear sounds awesome. This transmission, it's a 5-speed. It's pretty good. You know, even coming from a Honda, it's still pretty good. One complaint I do have about it is that it does not have good highway gearing. I define good highway gearing as the engine is revving below 3,000 RPM at 70 miles an hour. And at 70 miles an hour, you're getting close to 3,500 RPM in this thing, and that's just too high. It's too much noise, too much buzzing on a long trip, too much worrying about the engine. So unfortunately, the short gearing makes it not a great highway car. But the short gearing does have its benefits for acceleration, and that it does do well. It's not fast. It probably does 0 to 60 in like 9 seconds. But, you know, my expectations are through the floor. Which is good, because it means I'm never disappointed. Another thing that's worth mentioning, I should explain what happened to my previous shitbox, because it just disappeared. I popped the timing belt on it. It's actually a hilarious story. I was driving to an interview for my current job, driving a tow truck, and I popped the timing belt on that drive, and I had to get it towed. So I had to get my car towed on my way to a job interview for a tow truck, for a towing company, which is hilarious. But that car is not gone. It's not in a scrapyard or anything. I brought it to my mechanic, and they took a look at it and like, yeah, you definitely popped that timing belt. And you know, I didn't want to fix it. I had no desire to do a timing belt job on that car with all the other stuff that it had going against it. So I surrendered the title to them, and they were going to scrap it and, you know, give me whatever the scrap value they got for it. But then they fixed it. So it's fixed and it's running. They had to replace two intake valves, because that's an interference engine. And they fixed it, and now it's for sale. And that car will live on, because it is the epitome of surviving. So that's what happened to my previous shitbox, and now I'm driving this one. I'm not sure how long I'm gonna have this one. I know I've said that about my previous shitbox, and I'll probably say that about every car I own, but I don't think I'm gonna be keeping this one for 4 years like I did my previous one. like this car. I've been looking at Mazda 3s for a while. I've heard good things and read good things, and now that I have one, I could definitely recommend them. But we'll see what happens. We'll see how long I keep it. Some things that I'm definitely gonna fix. I'm definitely gonna fix parking brake. Definitely gonna replace that fender liner. I'm gonna try to get the hood to close properly. And it has another peculiar issue where it does not maintain fuel pressure while it's off. So when I go and start it in the morning, I have to pump the fuel pump. I have to prime the fuel pump at least twice to get it to start well. If I don't do that, it'll crank for 10 seconds before it starts. But that's not a big deal. I don't know why it's doing that, and I also don't know if I'm going to fix it. I probably will fix it because, it might become an actual problem. But that is my Mazda 3. Thank you guys for tuning into this video. It's the first video that's gone up on the channel in a while. I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.